Months back, someone asked me to do a full trace of every possible pathway a specific missing person took. There's very little information after the day he went missing, and things were pieced back together again retrospectively, or retroactively. Anyway, someone asked me, why do you assume that he was at XYZ? Another person also said, you lost me at probably still alive. Unless a body is found, you always assume the person's alive. You can have a person declared dead if you want to, or if you need to, but I don't do that. It's not my place. And after the person became missing, he was seen by other people. And as I stated, the family seemed pretty sure that the corroboration of him being missing and being seen was at least useful, and I only discussed the individuals who said they saw someone at the same location, therefore corroborating the location. If I wasn't specific about that in my response in text, I apologize. So I get this response. You can't have it both ways. Now I'm going to stop right here. In order for someone to say I'm doing something and using special circumstances for saying against and for, there must be a form of dichotomy or something, some sort of problem with my logic, which is likely. I mean, it's months since this video came out. I don't even remember most of it, but I can go look it up again just like anybody else can. And what you find is the same list of possible sightings of the person. That's all. And I was asked, where could he have gone? And I traced his steps as straight lines and offered up places he might have passed through, because that person initially said, I'd like to know where he might have gone through, and if the person was on foot, the most likely pathway is pretty much a straight line. So I looked at the pathways and the fact that the pathways the person took were actually downhill. And if you go on Street View in the area, where you can, you notice that it's visually obvious that it's kind of downhill. It would be a not that hard walk. And the person may have just simply wandered off. We don't know why. But other people want to have a conspiracy theory about him being lost because he was involved in some sort of drug deal or whatever. And this goes against the background of the person, their actions beforehand. And people like making salacious stories. That's the new word for this week, salacious statements about people who are missing, because they want to play amateur detective, like out of an old, detective magazine, which isn't really helping. This person, by the way, if anybody's curious, has been missing for a very long time. And the only video evidence of the day he went missing is a couple of CCTV recordings that I was able to confirm his actual pathway. That's all. And if that pathway is in any indication, since he took this pathway and ended up many miles that direction, he may have been just heading that direction. We don't know. But anyway, you can't have it both ways. You emphasize the family's word that the descriptions of sightings match. The family seemed to agree that those were were sightings of him. Now, they're being hopeful that he's alive and all that, but that's not relevant. What they did is corroborate that the descriptions at least somewhat matched, and also these were sightings taken or referred to by other people who didn't know about each other making these assertions. And yes, the person also pointed out that, yeah, people sometimes hear about a story on the news and want to corroborate it for whatever reason. Maybe they want to give false hope to a family, or maybe they just want to be in the news being interviewed. But the thing is, some of them weren't interviewed by anybody other than the police. They were just trying to help, apparently. It's a sign of the family's hopefulness rather than coming to terms with the loss of a loved one you're presuming is gone. There wasn't any body found in the area, and making up stories about him being a mule for drugs or him keystering stuff, which I've seen in the comment section, doesn't really help anything. But dismiss the family's insistence that he would never disappear and put his family through that devastation is counteracted and not corroborated by the fact that he did a bunch of things just before this happened that indicated he was disconnecting himself from his family somewhat. He had refused to accept help from his family. And as for disappearing, I don't know whether he did or not. I'm not kidding about that. You could also come to the conclusion that they're lying about him being missing. Maybe he was avoiding some big debt. Maybe he went off on some secret mission for the CIA. No, I'm just kidding. The family's insistence that he would never disappear and put his family through this devastation contradicts their own assertion that after he was missing, they agree that other people saw him at another location. I can't have it both ways. No, the family can't have it both ways. The family has stated that at least some of the reports sound like him. They're not denying that those reports are accurate. And at the same time, they're saying he would never just disappear on his own. But people saying he was voluntarily involved in some sort of drug deal or whatever. No. They're saying that he wasn't dead that day. No, it's not either or. It could be the other thing. He may not have died that day, or maybe even weeks later. His insistence he would never disappear and put his family through this devastation is actually their hopeful feelings. Them saying that the descriptions they were given or that these people did corroborate each other by accident isn't hopeful. That's just them saying that that sounds about right. Especially his father. The sightings in this case are nonsense. Why? Because you don't like them? They're the only sightings that were listed afterwards. No one has positively identified him anywhere else, and I didn't take anything that was really obviously screwed up. I only took sightings people made or reported that were reported by people, and that's it. And they weren't not trying to be famous or just jerk people around. Just like the ones in so many others. Such and such, for example. So it's not baby with a bathwater argument here. It's just that the person's saying that the family's insistence that he would never normally do something, and that after he was missing, he was seen at other locations. Maybe they just assumed he got involved with somebody. Maybe it was a girlfriend or something. Other people have come up with a conspiracy theory that he was involved with somebody else because he went and visited former girlfriend. He went off and did all sorts of things. He went in a very, very odd behavior pattern that doesn't make sense to anybody right before Christmas. And that day, he got presents, which were still in the vehicle, to give to his family, and didn't come back to him. He didn't come back to them and retrieve them. The vehicle had fuel. He was financially hosed, but he could still get back to his family. And he'd gone on a long curving activity where he even went past the place. This was pieced together after the fact. And even after people came forward and said, yeah, I think I saw the guy at this location. And a bunch of people said they saw him at this location. So those are supposed to be thrown out because the family believed it? That's not how we do things in the real world. If someone makes a claim to see on a map, let's say my head is the map of some valley. If they just go along with that, it's crazy. Anyway, and they say they saw a UFO over here. And I found this guy said it was this angle, and this guy said it was this angle, and this guy said it was this angle. That guy is probably not correct. However, if he was in a moving car, maybe it would. I find out the time and date stamps, because it may have been a different day, and find out, oh, he was referring to when he was over here. So it does corroborate the location. So I can triangulate, find a location. I find out it's a light on the end of an electrical cable, an electrical tower that was malfunctioning and popped that night. The witness reports corroborate what they saw. What's wishful thinking or whatever? No, it's not a UFO. It was a light bulb that popped. A bright flashing electrical arc over high tension line light might actually do that. Yes, that's actually an example of one I did a long time ago when I just did debunkings of UFO videos being UFOs. The assertion that is made is that the family has said that he would never disappear and put his family through all that devastation, especially his father. For what reason? You see, everybody wants their own specific story. All I did was report all the information that was found without anybody posting an opinion. I undo CNN bullshit. We have an opinion on something, and we're only going to talk about what we want to talk about for days and days after something, instead of just reporting what the hell happened and then literally making the most logical conclusion instead of pushing something that may not be really related. Somebody became missing after doing some very unusual behavior in the days or weeks beforehand, all because he wasn't able to make it in the real world, and he wasn't able to do any better, and he was not asking his family for help even though he should have. Been there, done that. Have you? And then he ran off. My case, at the age of 25, after being basically a failure in my own town, I moved to Portland. Then I became not a failure. I was able to work at and eventually run a computer shop. I ran away because I ran away with a girl. Well, why wouldn't he contact? He may be dead. This is possible. I thought at the time he's probably still alive. And I left a message at the end. If you are watching this for some damned reason, call your family. I've been there, done that. But no, people like you show up and say, well, I don't want any false hope for the family. Okay, but there were witnesses who saw him, and it was probably him. Uh, some of the behaviors matched the kind of thing he would have been doing. And it also is in a straight line the direction he was going. And I found the pathway he went through. He probably went through basically an elongated, very bizarre cluster of golf courses and backyards. He might have been just trying to figure out something. He was going through a life crisis. He was doing all the things a person would do before suicide, possibly. But he was seen later. But not much later. Also, a cell phone was picked up. Well, we think he was robbed or whatever. Well, it's been a long time and his body hasn't been recovered. So I opt to believe that maybe he'd be alive. Me showing faith as an atheist. But if you want to, you can say I'm saying it's both ways, even though I'm literally repeating what the family said consistently. They agree that those sightings are probably accurate, even though it contradicts what they wish to believe about him voluntarily being missing, or worse, being voluntarily missing for a little while, maybe too long, obviously, and then maybe not being able to come home. And them saying he normally, the quote you're looking for is, normally, Stephen would never disappear and put his family through this devastation. There must have been some compelling reason to do it. He was in a family that he felt pressured to impress or not be a failure in. I know exactly what that's like. That's me projecting. And I have lots of friends who disappeared for months at a time, or even a year, because they were going through something and didn't want to make everybody else miserable in their life. And sometimes you separate from people long enough that you can't come back. Not a family member, but other friends. It's just so long, and just like, I don't want to call up my friend Bill from high school, even though I could. Or my old boss who said, if you're ever in a bind, I'll help you. He went through too much stuff. He lost his house. He's not going to help me. He once pointed to somebody on the side of the road who was homeless and said, you'll never be like that because I'll always help you because you helped me not go out of business. It's a nice thought, but I'm not going to waste his time. Yeah, I check up on him. Sort of like the Men in Black movie where he looks down from a satellite to make sure his old girlfriend is happy, or at least not miserable. I make sure that my old boss is okay, but he's still not financially able to help anybody but himself. I'm amazed he was able to take care of himself at all. Sometimes you just don't want to weigh anybody else down. Maybe the family went through something they haven't told anybody about. Maybe his dad dying was so much of a hit that he just didn't want to go back. Better to be thought of as dead than absent, maybe. I don't know. What kind of empathy are you showing here? And why are you arguing a point on a YouTube channel at all? Have a good day. Thanks for watching. Have a good luck with that. And Steve, if you're watching, call your family. They still love you. That's all he needs to hear if he's out there, not your whining. Good day.